Hi, Uprisers. It's Tricia LaCroix once again with Sacred Uprising Institute and Conference. And let's see if we can get this to work for Candise. So I'll wait a few moments for her to jump on here. Sacred Uprising Institute and Conference. This is about acknowledging, understanding, awakening to the divine love, the infinite love that is within you, that you are created from, that you are. And want to direct everybody to our YouTube. Hi, there we go, Candace. I got you now. Direct everybody to our YouTube channel. You can go ahead and look it for the peony on YouTube, and you can be informed of when we are. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Hey.
Hi.
So I was just telling everybody about our YouTube channel. You can go there and subscribe, and you'll be notified when we download or upload, I should say, new videos. And all videos are uploaded within 24 hours of us filming them here on Facebook. And in addition to that, and Candace is one of our teachers that will be at the Sacred Uprising Conference in the mountains of Santa Cruz, California. It is September 18th, 19th, and 20th of this year. So go check out our website, that's sacreduprising.com, to obtain some additional information on that. And you will be teaching about this divine feminine, and which I'm so excited about and so grateful that you've offered to teach that to our attendees.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be teaching that subject. It's one that's near and dear to my heart and just completely revolutionized my spiritual path. So
that's wonderful. And I got to tell you, when I started learning about the divine feminine and it started merging within me, that's when my life transformed. So it's such a powerful subject. So, but today we're talking about sacredness and marriage. Now, before we move forward with this conversation, I want people to understand we don't say that everybody has to get married. That's not what I believe. We don't believe that. But for Candace and I, it is our calling. And I do have some great understanding. By the way, I need to send you the information I just received about it, but a great understanding on why that's important for you and for me personally. It's about bringing what's above, bringing it below, bringing that divine union below, putting that, anchoring that into what we call marriage. And so that is my calling. And I was so grateful when you and I spoke, and I understood immediately that was also your calling. And for me to find somebody else that felt that way or knew that that was their mission and calling, for me was like, oh my gosh, there's somebody else, they get it.
Thank you very much. No, and I felt the exact same way because, like you said, I'm very aware of the fact that the patriarchal mode of marriage obviously is not for, most of us, but that there was this deeper sacred merger that could happen if we felt called to. The way that I felt it coming through when I was praying on it was, like I felt my higher power saying that marriage was the sacred path for me. Marriage was the path to my highest awakening. And so that was that's what made me step into it, because I've always been the type of person where there needs to be some sort of a deeper meaning and some sort of a higher purpose to it. If it was just about picking the person I was most fond of and saying, let's buddy up, that wouldn't have been enough for me.
Right. Yeah. And many people in the spiritual community, and I think it's beautiful, they want to just have ceremonies. They don't want to be within the 3D establishment of marriage. And I think that's great. I think right on. Or some people don't even want that. They want to experience God in many different forms, and that's fine as well. But for me, it is the sacredness of marriage. It is the divine union. It is standing before God and me looking at him and seeing God within him, and him looking at me, seeing God within me, and that we come to do a mission together. It is very, very important for me. So.
Yes, absolutely. And then that contract, right? That contract that comes in to bring that sacred container. And I think that, again, with a lot of valid purpose, the idea of a contract or a container has felt constraining to a lot of us on the path, because contracts have been used to label us or define us or diminish but it's
or
looking
control
at
us.
this. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's what it was for me, was like looking at, okay, so what does this container, what does it mean for me? And for me, it was a sacred, holy container where the two of us got to come in and we got to have this as our lifetime mission, loving one another as divinity and loving ourselves as divinity. And so it was like there's the three aspects to the marriage, you know, like the divine feminine, the divine masculine, that is represented as him and I, and then that merger that happens when we bring our holy essence together.
Yes.
And then the reason why I wanted to have this topic this week is because we discussed this idea of how marriage can be a sacred path about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And you know, when I discuss this, I get so inspired. And you know, my love story with my beloved is just like, I'm so happy for the way that it was created, right? Like it was so devastatingly romantic, and we had distance, and we merged the distance, and we moved, you know, when he finally got his citizenship, and it was just like every day was better than the next, and this joy and this bliss. And so I often share about that, but I wanted to make sure that we also talked about the other side of the spectrum, which is how do we practice honoring one another as sacred beings? How do we practice this sacred path of marriage when one or both of us is struggling, or when that zest, maybe when we don't feel it right away. You know, I had a friend once who is very spiritual that said, you know, sometimes love is a choice. It's not about always waking up and feeling so excited. Like if I'm only basing my sacred marriage on the happy feelings, then when the dips come, you know, does that mean I'm going to start questioning it? Was it a sacred marriage? Was it my twin flame? Should I have done this? Like, when I made that commitment, I shut the doors. And so it's like, okay, how do I practice this now in the times when I'm not at the peaks, and the times when I go through the valleys or go through the desert periods?
Right. Right. No, I think this is a beautiful topic. And even those, and I think maybe we should define for people what a twin flame is, a soulmate is, just so people have a foundation of understanding in case they don't understand what that is before we move forward.
Okay, yes. So for me, the understanding of the twin flame was going to be like my actual twin soul essence. And so some people do believe that we once were androgynous beings, and that we split ourselves into masculine and feminine expressions, and that when we meet our twin, we recognize them as our other. I think that there's an important balance to be distinguished, where it's not as though I'm half of a being and my twin flame is a half and I'm only whole if I meet them, but it's that it's kind of like the microcosmic experience of this macrocosmic belief that we have, that we're all one. We're all one being. And then in this realm, we run our own frequencies, and there's one being that runs the exact same frequency as me, just in another body.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or whatever. You know, my twin flame happened to be in a male body, and I happened to be in a female body. And so when I met him, it actually was like we were these twins that had been separated, just these eerie things that we had in common, like same bank PIN numbers, same passwords to get into our computer. We were both known as always wearing tank tops, just like really silly things. Then we would hear, so it was just like I knew him, right? And he knew me.
Right.
So this idea of a twin flame is this other that actually is ourselves. And in my experience, the more that I can merge with my other as myself, the deeper I'm able to start practicing this ability to recognize my oneness with all beings, because I've honed that tool, and I've honed that muscle within this twin flame relationship.
Right. Now, I want to define what I believe is a soulmate. A soulmate, in my opinion, I would never want to be with long term. A soulmate is somebody that puts a mirror up to you to show you all the crap that you need to heal. And so there is push and pull. There is struggle. There is, it can be volatile. It can also be very loving, because it's like you remember them. And it is, but it is not to be confused with a twin flame or a divine union. So just so we can categorize it for people, you know, label it so people understand what we're talking about as we go through this discussion.
Yes, and that can be the challenge, you know, because when I talk about how I recognized Alejandro when I met him, and how I just knew, you know, I've had people say, well, I felt like that too, but then it wasn't this person. And for me, again, there's a twofold situation there. Like, I had thought that I had experienced that with soulmates in the past. There was a distinct difference. And actually, Perry had asked this, and I hadn't gotten around to answering this the other day, but he commented on the film. But the distinct difference, and I remember it happening and being like, whoa, was that I felt everything in my heart space. And before, I had felt everything in my second chakra, and I hadn't really recognized that until I felt my heart open up. And with this heart space also there was definitely like a deep, deep soul desire for me to be with him. And then in my spirit, there was also this acceptance that if it didn't happen in this lifetime, in the flesh, for whatever reason, that it was okay, because I just knew that I was going to know him for every lifetime.
Eternity. Yeah, an eternity of eternities. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like you, I mean, I've been in situations where I thought I found, you know, oh, it must be my twin. They're running, or I'm running, or whatever it may be. And it was like, no, there were some that they were soulmates. There were lessons to be learned. Another one, it was to tear me completely apart so I could rebuild myself. But yeah, it can be confusing. But when you meet your twin, when you meet your divine sacred union, there is no doubt. There's no questioning. What is this? You know.
That's right.
You know right here.
That's exactly right. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, and so that was the thing, was like recognizing that I had met my twin, and then, like I said, like that complete devotion, and also the unattachment to how it was going to happen. Whereas, you know, my human did have these desires. And so one of the things that I had people kind of, not people, but a few people challenged me when him and I first met, saying, well, if he's your twin flame, why are you two so happy? Because people had this idea that it needed to be a struggle, or there needed to be something that was going to tear us apart. And I would just say, I don't know, that's not my story. So, you know, that being said, when I was given this message that marriage was going to be my sacred path, and then I met him, and it was so easy to be in love, you know, and it was just like we were able to share and be everything with each other. I really thought for a while there, I think, you know, everybody said falling in love with somebody else was not going to be the answer to all my problems, but they were wrong. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to have another problem again, you know, and it was this blissful newness. But what I've found is that because we both dedicated the marriage to be the tool that brought us to our highest awakening, that means, you know, like you were talking with Bliss, you know, she talks about those different phases that we go through with the conscious evolver. We go through these different phases in our spiritual development. That means that him and I both have had these times where we've had to dig deep, and we've had these transformative moments in our life. You know, in the Bible, it talks about Jesus going through the desert period. And I like that analogy sometimes for my spiritual walk, when I feel like I'm in the desert period and, you know, I'm practicing the meditation, I'm putting the principles into practice. I'm doing everything that I need to do. I'm looking at how I can expand, and yet I just don't feel it. I can't feel that connection. I'm not getting the inspiration. And thankfully, after having years on this path, I know that I need to just keep walking it, just keep putting it into effect, and that I'll get through the desert period.
Right.
You know, but when I go through these challenging moments, or I've noticed, you know, when my beloved goes through these challenging moments, I'm not always able to show up as this benevolent goddess in my marriage, you know, or he's not able to show up as like this shining example of God, because he's going through his work. And so, like I said, it's like, how do I practice this sacredness while still honoring myself and my growth? And the number one place that I found it was, you know, what I've found is that we both need to know that the first place that we go to when these situations come up is inside to our source self.
Right.
And that was a new experience for me, because I kept connecting to the divine as beloved until I met my beloved. And then my beloved showed up, and it was easy to be like, well, I don't need to connect to the divine as beloved anymore because I have a beloved. But I did still need to be going within to connect to my source self. And I did need to know that, like, my answer first needed to come from within, that my responsibility is to stay a whole integrated being in this marriage, that I don't get to turn to him to become my God. I can honor him as God, but he is not my God, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And you know, what's interesting is that when we do go through those those difficult times with our beloved, if we stay connected to the beloved, that we will never lose that connection, because it is just they are an aspect of the beloved. So it's keeping heart centered and keeping centered on all that is.
That's right. And that's what I noticed, like I was sharing with you before the show, like we kind of hit this like trifecta of challenging circumstances, my husband and I, a few years ago, where we uprooted with our child who was 20 months at the time, and we moved across country to a place that had I had a lot of transmuting to do at the place. It wasn't an easy place for me to first move back to. And then as we were trying to get settled and get work and all the financial insecurity while we were getting settled, his father was diagnosed with cancer, and he deteriorated very quickly. It was brain cancer. So between February to May, it was just this fast-paced deterioration. And that obviously brought up a lot for my husband as a man, watching his father and preparing for his father to leave. And then in the midst of that, I got pregnant and lost a baby as well. So I had a miscarriage. So it was like we had this strain on the marriage as like financially just getting settled into our new place. Then he has this just complete soul heartbreak as he deals with his father slowly deteriorating and quickly deteriorating and passing away. And then I've got the loss of this baby, it was just so much. And so like we weren't able to stand up to be that strong presence for one another when we both needed it at the same time. And so the well that we had to go to was from within. And I remember I almost felt like I was taking temper tantrums at the time, thinking like that the pattern has been that when I'm struggling, that he's the goofy one, he's the silly one, he's the one that wraps me up and says it's going to be fine. Like he's supposed to come and pull this up now, but he couldn't because he had his father that he was going through.
Right.
And it was always before when he was struggling, I was like that divine cosmic mother that would wrap him up and would tell him it was okay and we don't need to rush things. And it was like I couldn't be that for him because I was grieving my child. And so thankfully, we had this foundation where the marriage was the sacred place where we were going to be doing our work, and we were able to trust that even though there was this moment where we couldn't connect person to person really well, I knew that my beloved still lived inside of him. And he knew that his goddess still lived inside of me. And so that's what I would connect to. When I was at nighttime doing my prayers, I'd pray to that source within me, but then I would also pray to that beloved that I knew was inside of him. And I think that the tool of transfiguration is just one of the strongest tools that we have within marriage, especially if we're at a point where there can't be a ton of communication. Like we were both so full that we couldn't have these deep conversations about, well, what's going on in our marriage? What do we have to do? Because it's like we were both at our apex.
Right.
So it was like, how do it? I can transfigure him. I can see him and I can know his truth for him. I can know that he is God. I can know that he is perfect. I can know that he is well and that he's going to walk through the other side of this as a strong, beautiful, radiant man, even if he can't know that for himself right now.
And that's the magic of going into 5D, to have that type of relationship, because you can put the 3D aside for moments and you can focus on what's really going on, the 5D, the beauty, the purity, the divinity of it, rather than he's not communicating well enough. He's, there's issues. Why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he doing that? And reconnect with what truly is.
Yes. And one of the greatest inspirations that I had read, and it's so short, it's just a few paragraphs. I want to pull it back out, but there's one of my heroes is Amachi. Do you know who she is?
No, I don't. No.
So she is called the Hugging Saint, but she is an Indian holy woman, and she's just beautiful. And that's like her gift. I mean, she does a lot of charity, but one of her main gifts to the world is that she is the embodiment of this cosmic mother. And when she does darshan, people come up and they just hug her, and she just activates them and transmutes them. So she's this beautiful woman. But Amachi, much like the Buddha, is this presence that gets passed down through these women over the years. And so all of these women who have been Amachi have been single women where that's what their gift to the world is. Their calling is sacred singleness, except for one. there was one lady that became the divine incarnation of Amachi, but she was also called to marriage. And so when they write about her in this book about Amachi, it talks about how, and this was years and years and years ago, in her Indian tradition, the first space that a woman really showed honor was within her marriage. And so she would be out in the fields and she would be cutting the wheat, and her husband wasn't super affectionate, and he definitely didn't recognize her as a holy woman. And people would actually come to the fields while she was cutting this wheat to just be around her and get this presence. And then she'd be like, okay, I have to go in and make dinner for my husband. And nobody understood why she wasn't just being in her calling. But her first devotion was this marriage. And then one day, out of nowhere, her husband woke up and he saw her as who she was. He saw her as Amachi. And then that's when this path started, where she had all of these devotees and he was her number one support that was behind her. And it was just like she knew who she was. She knew who her divine self was. She wasn't on him and bugging him like, why don't you treat me better? Why don't you show me love? Why don't you see how wonderful I am? She just showed up as who she was, as the radiant being, and his consciousness came to rise up where he could recognize her, and then they had this divine union.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, because typically what happens if you are with people of a lower vibration, let's just call it that way, your vibration will dip. But it's amazing to see that hers was so strong that he was able to rise.
Yes, and I mean, she was this holy woman, right, that had this holy path. And so to me, that analogy, it shows me how to use it on a smaller level, where it's like, okay, like when my husband and I met, we absolutely were vibrating at the same frequency. We have our highs and our dips, and hopefully they happen at different times so we can support each other. But like if I'm at a place where he's really doing his inner work and I'm not able to feel that same level of connection, remembering that story and remembering like I just need to tend to my sacred self and continue to behold him as the sacred being that he is, and then vice versa. I'm really working to be that highest vibration.
Yeah, no, and of course, you know, I've been in my relationship for about a year now. So, but that being said, is that what I have found thus far, I should say, is that I can do those things because I am completely committed to this relationship 100%. You know, 3 weeks ago, an ex-boyfriend contacted me and I said, don't you ever contact me again. It's like the doors are closed. There is no being friends with other guys. Yes. There's none of this going, no, there's no reason for it for me. That's just how I am. But I can take care and nurture the relationship in many of these 3D ways. But he has made space for me to continue my expansion in 5D, to continue my spiritual journey, to create space that I have time, because I am not me if I am not focused on God. I'm not me. If I am focused on everything else, I lose the essence of who I am. I should say I don't lose it, but for lack of a better term, it gets lost in everything that's going on around me. So to have this type of relationship where there is the 3D, there's the excitement, there's the games, the concerts, the fun, where we don't mesh, or, there's all this real stuff going on. There is also the real stuff of I have space to connect with the beloved, and without the beloved, I need the beloved more than I need the breath in my lungs. I need the beloved for me to have a connection with my beloved. I have to have that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's I think the biggest gift that two people can give one another in a sacred marriage. And that was like the number one thing, like when we were going through our really big desert period, was like if either one of us said, like I need to go and meet with my spiritual circle, I need to go do a meditation, it was just like, there was never a question. Right. It was like, yes, go and do that. And even when, when I decided that I was going to come and do the conference or whatever, when I told my husband, like, I've never been away from the girls and he's never had the girls on his own. And his first reaction was absolutely go, we can do this, and it was just like, whenever either one of us has anything to do with our spirit growth, we know that we have to encourage the other one to go there, because that's what keeps this marriage sacred.
It does.
And that's and that's what I find the big balance in is, like, as a priestess, my work is to merge the as above, so below energies. So it's not about being in denial or repression. I don't want to deny or repress the parts of my human that struggle as I continue to awaken and walk through different challenges. But I also need to balance that with not becoming complacent,
Right.
and not just expecting this love that I felt at the beginning when we met to sustain us, that I need to continue to keep it new. I need to continue to renew it. And I do that by renewing my eternal love with that inner beloved.
Right. Oh, and it's like a fountain living water. You know, what Spirit has been talking to me about is my only job is to open the doors so the flow of source can go through the doors. And
Yes.
I've been doing that in areas where I'm afraid to do it, where there's fear involved. And I've been doing that, but I'm also doing that within my relationship. It's even important, you know, even understanding their love language, because if you understand their love language, that way when they're going through those dips, and I gotta, you know, and I've never even said this to Charles, I noticed that there was a little shift, something wasn't really jiving with us, and I'm like, wait a second, I haven't been talking to him in his love language, and this was something that I did very quietly. So I shifted just a little bit, and all of a sudden the pouring of blessings that started raining down on us, and it connected us even stronger. So understanding that as well is part of this thing, to step outside of ourselves, to understand if we are completely fulfilling the other person, when we have that twin flame, when we have that divine union, when we are completely fulfilling that person, that we too will be fulfilled. I just went to the U2 concert, and one of the songs said, the only thing that we really have is what we give away. That's all we really have. And it is like a miracle. It just, it expands when we give it away. So what we are giving, I'm not saying to, you know, put ourselves on an altar for anybody, including our significant other, being true to who we are, but in those ways that fulfill them, taking care of them, and keeping it, understanding it's sacred, and keeping it sacred, and fulfilling them, then we too will be fulfilled.
Thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up, because like I like how you mentioned the 5D, because the 3D and the 5D are two different planes, right?
Yes.
And so when we try to practice this in the 3D, people get concerned about codependency or overgiving. But when we are in the 5D, when I am fully connected and I am fully charged with my beloved, that is an untappable well. And so I can do that in my marriage. I can say, you know what, it's going to be just about you and what I can give to you, and not about what I can get to you, because my needs are already met. And then I am just building that love, because I'm creating a bigger dam for that to come through.
Right.
You know, and that's a huge, huge practice. I don't know if you've ever read any of David Data's work. David Data does a lot of he does a lot of work with this idea of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and he separates it into 3 stages. So first stage feminine, second stage, third stage. So when we get to third stage and we've integrated our own feminine and masculine, and we're standing in our own divine space, he says the feminine and masculine have different gifts that they give each other. And what the feminine gives the world, but definitely through her partner, is receptivity. And it's an open heart that accepts everything. It's an open heart that feels everything. And just the simple practices that he has about really sitting and just receiving your beloved and pulling it all into the heart, pulling the stories, pulling the challenges, just continuing to have that open heart, and just allowing that beloved to know that they constantly have a place to fall. And it's like, if my heart is open to the inner beloved, then the place where my beloved in the flesh falls is right into the lap of that cosmic mother, beautiful energy.
Can you, when we're done with this, can you put his information in the comments? Because I want to look him up. I've not heard of him before. I would love to look it up and learn more about that. But that's,
absolutely, you'll love it.
Yeah, and that's what I found, is that when I am connected, when he and I are connected together, and I'm connected to the beloved, it's like you said, it's never ending. The blessings are above and beyond anything that I could have ever imagined or dreamed for myself. And I'm not just saying that in gifts and in you know, in physical things, but the joy, the love that flows through this house, the peace, the contentment. I have never been content in my life. I am so content. And all
Yes.
these, the abundance, again, it's not just about financial. It's not just about monetary gifts. It is so much greater and bigger than that. I have never been happier. So yeah, right. No, I love that.
Thank you. And then there was one final thing that I wanted to kind of end on. And again, it can sound a little bit tricky, but it's just, you know, it's what I practice for myself. And I would love to just invite anybody who feels as though they are in a sacred marriage and they're with their twin flame. And it's this idea of accountability. And so for me, it's like if I am realizing that that is what my duty, for lack of a better word, is within my marriage, is to keep my spirit strong and to stay connected, then you know, it's like it's a personal inventory that I do on a daily basis, where it's like if I'm starting to get ornery, if I'm starting to get irritated, if I'm starting to notice the lack, instead of that, this is the solution to that is not in getting him to change. It's not in reminding him like, well, have you been doing your meditations, or do you remember when we met, how you used to? It's not about that. It's about really being able to live what I said, which was that you show up exactly as you are. And if it's a pleasant appearance, awesome, I'll enjoy it. And if it's a challenging one, I am going to transfigure you until I see nothing but God with skin on. And that's for me to do.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that is so powerful. Just show up, and it is my duty to see you as God with skin. That is beautiful. That is freeing, actually. Thinking of my situation, that, okay, that's how he views me, and that's how I view him. That is freeing to just be. Yes, so much. Yes, Lori. And Lori is with her twin flame too. And to awesome. Understand that is his only duty. My only duty.
Yes.
To see him.
Yes.
God with skin. Wow.
And then how simple it makes it too, right? It just cuts away all of the bullshit in, like, it cuts it all away, because there is that one single focus.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So how have you found with your beloved that he is able to practice it as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I mean, and those were the vows that we made when we came together. You know, and I see, you know, like he offers that right back to me. And that's some of the stuff that I've said, you know, is like the way that I'm able to see myself through his eyes is like, that's sometimes how I remember my divine essence when I'm really struggling, is like, well, how is he seeing me through this right now? Yeah. You know, we're able to remind one another sometimes, you know, like, let's get back to what the focus and what the purpose of this is. And it is to hold one another like that. You know, and just like, and the way, you know, even just the way that he will like speak about me to other people, hear about afterwards, like I can be embarrassed sometimes. So I'm like, what? He's going around saying that, but it's like, you know, he's still so excited.
That's so amazing. Well, I know we have less than 1 minute left for you. So I highly recommend people reach out to Candise. So Candise, how can people reach out to you and gain your counsel and your wisdom?
Thank you. So yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, you can, I have a site, priestessofgrace.wordpress.com. You can message me through there, or I'm on Facebook as Priestess of Grace. You can send me a private message there as well. The main work that I do with people one-on-one is really, it's, you know, I work as a channel and I help people to just be able to tap into and hear the messages that they're getting from spirit about where their next best step is on their spiritual path for their highest calling and highest purpose.
Wonderful. I love it. Candise, thank you so much. And I'd love to do a topic with you on the twin flame, and to explain people how they can receive the twin flame and not find that it's a tumultuous relationship. So I'd love to have that conversation with you. So we're going to let you go. Thank you, everybody, for watching. In about 20 minutes, we have Dr. Lisa coming on to talk about divine love. So stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, everybody.